It's time to discuss today's top stories. We've got Nick Ferrari and Afua Adom. So welcome to both of you. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to start with Novak Djokovic, who's tested positive for coronavirus. He was in the Balkans and he was on the Adria Tour in Serbia and Croatia, an event that's organised by his brother. He was out at a wild topless party in the club just days before his test was announced. Hell of a night out going on here. Fourth player in the tournament now to test positive and has admitted on Twitter that despite good intentions, it
makes me embarrassed because I bet someone that night went, imagine if we all came down with it, and there they are. Oh, stop.
So there we go. That's the night out that he had. Now, we're trying to find out what the lockdown restrictions are in that part of the Balkans. But of course, if although it looks to us from here that is just ludicrous, and people have said he's a bonehead. That if that's allowed there, then he was just abiding by the rules in that country, Nick.
Well, Novak's hit Djokovic bottom, if you'll allow me to do that pun, and the timing seems to be the key here. And let's listen to some of the other professional tennis players, because it was as recently as part of it as last month. And Martina Navratilova, and you don't get much bigger than that, is suggesting that the timing was wrong. And this means, of course, because he's the fourth player, as you rightly said, the fourth player to contract it. There were at times around 4,500 people watching these matches. And this throws into doubt, we've already lost Wimbledon, and now there are questions over whether the US Open can go ahead because of the number of tennis players that have been infected. So while he's saying and he's maintaining that they did all the right things, to use his words, it was done with a pure heart, they did all the health checks, I think the views of other tennis pros in that it could throw the whole tour now for the rest of the year are very, very valid, because, of course, they want to play tennis, they want to get fans back, and this is not a team sport. You'd have thought that it was one of the sports that could actually get over the line quite quickly. So I'm afraid he's acted badly.
Afua, just bear in mind, we've just found out in Croatia, the recommendation is 1.5 metre social
Let's have a look at that video again and just check to see whether they're a metre and a half apart.
I mean, from that, we can't tell, but I don't know. It's hard to tell, really, isn't it? 1.5 metres is a recommendation. Afua, I just wonder... Please stop playing that. I just wonder whether, because this is what we're entering, isn't it? It's not law what we're entering into. These are recommendations. Is this what we're walking into?
Well, the thing is, nightclubs are not going to be opening just yet. So I hope we're not walking into that just yet. And I'm really glad that we stopped playing that video. Listen, like Nick said, this is all about timing, isn't it? And even though, restrictions are easing and people can get back out and about, we must remember that coronavirus is still here. It's still a thing. And that was so proved by this tournament. And I think it was just the wrong time. It was far too soon to bring all those people together in one place. As soon as one person got COVID-19, you knew that it was going to become more prevalent through the players. And also, Novak Djokovic has been quite controversial when it comes to coronavirus. He said a few things, a few people have been like, oh, really? He talked about the bans on some of the matches that were going to go ahead. And he said that the restrictions were too draconian, that they weren't necessary. He also said that he wouldn't take a vaccine if one was given to allow him to play later on in the tours. So his attitudes to COVID-19 have been a bit suspect, have been a bit problematic. And now, look at where he is.
Yeah,
look at
it goes to prove what can happen, that's for sure. And it's certainly a salient lesson for all of us, really, that you think you're just poking your head out of the woods and then suddenly, bam, it gets you again.
Absolutely.
And as the medical experts keep saying, it is still there. It is still there. So Hancock's half hour comes to an end of fans of what has now become a tea time telly show. Prepare to watch something new. Don't know what we're going to have in its place. It was the last day yesterday that the government briefing aired on television at 5 p.m. And so, Afua, good idea. Will you miss it?
Thank you. Oh, I won't miss it. I really won't miss it. When they scrapped it at the weekend, I thought, thank goodness. And yes, as good as it is to be updated on everything that's happening, I hope this means we're reaching a point where, as we're stepping down lockdown, that things aren't as serious. We do know that we need to keep an eye on it, and we do know that we need to stay alert, as Boris Johnson's always telling us. But I won't miss seeing Hancock and Pals on tea time television. I think it's time for something else, absolutely.
Nick?
Well, I know that on one channel it's going to be replaced by Pointless. Whether the viewers can spot the difference will just remains to be seen. But actually, I want to say, I don't think, with a few exceptions, I don't think the politicians did that badly. And it grieves me to say this, Phillip and Holly, but I think it's my profession that actually doesn't emerge out of this particularly well. I won't name names because it's not appropriate, but some journalists became absolutely obsessed with their line of questioning. I think questions have to be asked of the media when we get through all of this. There was perhaps too much what's called gotcha journalism, which is the idea that you set up a minister so you can try and catch him or her out. These were, at one point, these were the only touchstone that we had with the reality of a situation that was killing people by the thousands each day. And to continually go on a separate point, whatever it might be, I think at instances, I don't know that journalists cover themselves in glory. So that's what I'll take from those briefings.
OK, let's move on to a different story now. And this is the White Lives Matter banner at the Burnley match the other day. A Burnley fan who organised the controversial race banner to fly over the Etihad Stadium is not being charged by police. And it was funny because we were talking about this yesterday when we were talking about this, and I was saying, oh, I'm not really sure. I don't really want to see it again. Maybe we shouldn't do it. And we were hoping that at that point it would receive the full sort of, but the police would get behind it, and actually that would be the reason.
Well, I think Burnley have said that there's lifetime bans for the people that were involved. That was certainly the news that was going around yesterday. But yeah, we would have differing opinions. You said I don't think anything happened to this, and I said surely they won't let that go.
Not that I didn't want it to. I just felt that it would be.
Yeah, well, you were right.
And it's. Oh, I mean, it seems wrong that that's the case.
Oh, it absolutely is wrong. And it's really disappointing, in fact, that the police haven't got behind this, haven't decided to press any charges. We know how offensive this is, and we know actually that the person that did it and the point where the banner flew over the match, when players and officials were taking a knee, they knew what they were doing. They knew the effect that it would have. And again, it's really disappointing that the police have decided not to press charges. We know that the guy who's done this, who admitted it, has said that he's not sorry. He's not going to apologise for it. He's also, we found out that he's posted past racial abuse on social media. So we knew what his intention was.
What example does that set then? I mean, if the police don't do this in this situation, what does that mean elsewhere, do you think?
I mean, it's just another example, and I keep saying this, but it's just another example of the normalised racism, and it means that people can just keep getting away with doing and saying these things, and it's really infuriating. It's really disappointing that in this time, when we seem to be talking so much more about race, about racism, and trying to be anti-racist, that instead of the police proving that, OK, we can be anti-racist and we can do something about this, they haven't. And it means that other people will do the same thing because it feels like they're just going to get away with it. It's really disappointing and really infuriating.
Nick?
Reprehensible, wrong, in bad taste. But let's look at what Lancashire police have said. And there is a bar that you have to get above if you're going to press charges. Something like this has to incite civil unrest or riot. It is bad taste, agree. It's unlikely to incite civil unrest, I would suggest. Or, again, if you're going to prefer charges, it has to cause extreme duress or suffering. Again, I'm absolutely Afua. It's bad taste. I don't know that it would bring about extreme distress or suffering. So what you ask yourself now is, the other side is, do you want to live in a country where you are prosecuted for doing something that is in bad taste? That is all I'm going to say. It should never have happened. I don't support it.
Wouldn't you agree that would, for you personally, that's like long-term suffering? So does that not meet that criteria, surely?
Well, no, the banner.
There's so many instances of this kind of normalised, institutionalised racism that black people have been suffering for years, for absolutely years. This is just another example. And it all builds up over time, it all chips away. This is another example of it. So it does cause distress, it does cause suffering, it does cause harm, because like I said, it's normalised racism. It's what people are used to because it happens every single day. It's insidious and it's unnecessary. And like I said before, it's not about someone calling you an N-word. It's not about someone not letting you in a pub because you're black. It's all these kind of insidious type things that continue to happen, and it is harmful and it is dangerous.
Final word, Nick?
I absolutely understand what Afua is saying, and I say again, it is in terrible taste. These people do not represent football. They do not represent Burnley Football Club, and I think, Phillip, you said they're looking at lifetime bans. That is great. But we have to abide by what Lancashire Police saw. And remember, there is little point bringing charges if they're not going to get a prosecution, and it's the police that made that call, and they are acutely aware of those issues. So we have to respect, in this instance, what Lancashire Police have decided how they're to proceed.
All right, both of you, thank you very much indeed.